Hey, we're the Underneath, and you're watching AMBY.
Hey everyone, it's Heather from AMBY, and I'd like to welcome you to our video interview with the Underneath. How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks for asking. I just wanted to thank you guys so much for coming here to talk with me today. And as emerging artists, it's important that you get acquainted with our viewers at home. So if you can tell everyone, who are the Underneath and how long have you guys been together?
Well, first, thanks for having us, Heather. The Underneath is essentially two brothers, me and Chris, who've been into music all our lives, and that's Brian, who's been a good friend all our lives. So essentially, we're all like brothers, and we just grew up all around music since we were really small. Me and Chris have been playing together. Just started in the basement, in a couple bands, and then one band that we took pretty seriously for about 4 years. And we're just
It's like 7 years.
was it 7? Okay. I'm more like officially 4, but
It's a pretty long
Yeah.
time to be musicians.
yeah.
It's-
And really, we're just about writing music that we really feel proud about. That's unique. That's doing something that's true to ourselves, because at the end of the day, that's kind of the only way you get real satisfaction out of what you're doing. And that's about it.
Great. That sums it up quite nicely, actually. So you guys mentioned your brothers, and all three of you have known each other almost your whole life. How important do you feel that closeness is to your band dynamic?
I think it's very important. It's almost like a brotherly closeness where, we're not afraid to tell each other if we suck, where you don't have that awkwardness if there's like somewhere you don't really know that well. Yeah, and just the fact that we pretty much all grew up together. Matt and I are the same age, but then Chris was always there. So yeah.
Yeah, I think when you're writing music, it's like being in a marriage essentially, except you're with more than one partner. You have 3, 4, however many are in the group. So if you don't have that chemistry with each other, you can't play right. There's this like unspoken rule with music when you're kind of just jamming. There's this vibe, this energy that flows through the room, and you don't have to speak. You don't even have to look at each other. Everyone's just on the same page, and you know where the song's going, how the dynamics flow up and down, and that's really essential. And if you can't, and if you're not close to someone and you're unable to say, hey, that was wrong, or we got to do it like this, or try it like this, and it gets really awkward, and then the song loses its credibility, its purest form if you can't tell each other what needs to be happening. You need that art flowing through each other, like out of your head and sharing with each other.
Definitely being able to point out each other and criticize without damaging each other's confidence. It's really essential, because with random musicians, you do lose that. Or in a studio, like if you're working with people that you're not comfortable with, and you criticize, you can find yourself, backtracking and not sure of yourself anymore, because you thought you did something great and somebody kind of pointed you out the other way. So
it's
they're definitely right.
all about the comfort level
Yeah.
of your bands. Okay, so A Day of Winter is the album. Really, really super good stuff. Down tempo, kind of eerie. There's some electronic elements. I'm really, really digging it. You guys describe for me the direction that you've taken musically on this album.
Well, it's a big difference from I guess where we came from originally in Mary Rose Obsession, our previous band, which was very rock and roll. That band ended up being pulled in many different directions by many different industry people, and when you inject business into an art, it loses that purity for. So it took after we finished that band, it took some time to really clear our heads and get back to that pure form. And we've always been a fan of music that's just different, that's intriguing. And this time around, we wanted to do something that was literally different. So by taking organic acoustic instruments and combining it with synthesized like electronic type, we just started messing around and putting things together, and taking stuff from down tempo up to even EDM elements and old school rock and roll blues elements. Just anything we could think of that meant something to us, we'd put it in a song as long as it sounded good. We just wanted to have fun and do something different. We didn't care what anybody thought, what the industry thought, what's supposed to be radio, what's supposed to be popular. It's just what's pure, what we wanted to do, and that's what kind of came out.
Ah, that's pretty exciting. So then that definitely speaks to the state of the industry right now. Are you finding that your fans are more receptive to experimental tones in your music?
I think the music industry is still not quite there, but I think the people, the music listeners, the fans are.
Yeah.
Radio's not that experimental. Let's be honest, record labels aren't signing that kind of experimental stuff, but the demand for music like that is out there. And if you're searching through the internet or on Spotify, on iTunes, you'll find tons of music out there that is all over the spectrum, and people are very receptive to it. People, I think, are sick and tired of hearing the same, 4-chord pop song that they hear on the radio every day.
Yeah.
Do you want to add?
Yeah, just that I think within music genres there are so many sub-genres now that take alternative, for example, there's one end of the spectrum and it goes all the way to the other. And within alternative, there are so many different variations. Same with electronic, same with, pop. There's indie pop, there's Brit pop, there's so many genres that fans are now up to getting into new sounds, experimentation, because that's just where the music industry has moved within, I'd say, the past decade and a half, 15 years. Yeah. It's changed so drastically that concrete genres don't really exist anymore, and there's so many shades of gray in between that for us, like you asked about, are people receptive to what we're doing? Definitely, because people aren't afraid of things that are new anymore.
To add on top of that, I think in 2015, with the world in your hand, in a cell phone or a smartphone,
literally in
people
your hand.
want to find something new to grab their attention always. With YouTube, SoundCloud, all these different sites providing new music, people are always searching for that next greatest thing, and there's something really, really special. Like, it's very personal when you come across a brand new song that nobody's ever heard before. It's not on the radio. It's not everyone's. It's yours. You came across it first, and it speaks to you like that. And I think people really enjoy finding music.
Yeah, that sense of ownership is definitely important to fans. And speaking about experimental sounds, this whole project came of an experiment that you actually started at home.
Yep. So really, after that downtime that we talked about, of kind of just taking a step away from music to kind of re-find the core of what we wanted to achieve. When I first decided to get back into writing, picking it up, I just wrote a bunch of tunes on just an acoustic guitar. That's where it started, and I went to start recording them, and then it just came out sounding like kind of every other singer-songwriter acoustic type song, and I liked the songs, but I didn't like the way that they were just coming out like something that you've heard already a thousand times, and I asked myself, how can I make this unique? How can I stand out so I'm just not in that same pool of kind of acoustic singer-songwriter stuff? And that's when we really, just like Chris said, started touching on electronics and mixing a bunch of organics where the bones came from on the acoustic, and piano, and all our live instrumentation, drums, stuff like that, bass. And then we said, well, let's take those organics and mix it with a bunch of electronics, synth, program stuff, just cool effects too during production. And we started coming up with stuff that we enjoyed so much that it went from that experiment to let's actually move forward and get serious with it now. And that's exactly what happened. It was not expected. It was just a random experiment that turned out so beautifully that we said, I want to get more serious about it. Let's keep going, and that's what we did.
Wow. Well, it definitely is beautiful.
Thank you.
One thing I actually really like about your music is that it reminds me of music that I grew up listening to, and at the same time, it's reflective of stuff that I'm listening to right now. So, how important are your influences to you when you're recording music and albums?
I think that all the influences that we've had over, like I said, the past decade and a half, where music has changed so much, they're all kind of always within you. So directly or indirectly, when you're writing, all that's inside. So it starts coming out in your music, and you've taken so much in with the shift to EDM, becoming, electronic music becoming very popular, back to when we first, were young and getting into music with the late 90s, grunge, heavy rock, metal was very popular. All that's just always inside, whether you want it to be or not. So when you write, it's all kind of there. And I think maybe that's why, like you say, you hear stuff that kind of reminds you of something from the past, and stuff that reminds you of now. It's because it's always inside. And I think that's just how it reflects. Because it's not intentional, but I think it just comes out. Yeah.
To add to that, I think that when you're creating art or writing a song, painting a picture or whatever, you have to capture that emotion, the essence of the time, everything. And right now in 2015, there's a certain sound, there's a certain vibe to the way we live, a certain culture. And that culture, you find a lot of electronics in it. So I think the electronics really speak to the time within this organic music. There's this nice blend, and it's really speaking to the way the world is in 2015 as well.
Definitely. I definitely love the organic vibe of the album. Now, prior to its release on November 6th, your listeners could find all of your music on your SoundCloud channel. So how many of the songs from your SoundCloud actually made it onto the album?
Almost all of them, actually. We got a song called "Pins and Needles" that didn't make it to the album, but that was done with a different artist, a different singer. Yeah, it was a collaboration. But SoundCloud's where we pretty much launched all of our music to kind of get a feedback what the people that were listening liked. Yeah. And so that's how we kind of picked and choose the ones that we wanted to go on the album. And we also have acoustic versions of like an acoustic version of "Without You's" on the SoundCloud as well. That's going to be we're actually going to release "In Your Hands" as a single that's going to be available on iTunes with a bonus track, "Pins and Needles," and acoustic "Without You."
Nice.
Yeah, essentially SoundCloud is a place for us to just put out all our ideas, whether it's features, whether it's collabs, whatever it is. Anything that we write, we want to get feedback from, we put it on SoundCloud. That's just a way to share music. And then from there, it's, okay, we decide how do we want to create this next record or this next release, get feedback from our audience, and at the same time, when you put an album together, an EP, you want it to flow. You don't necessarily want to put 10 different tracks that are all over the place.
You want that coherence.
You want that flow to it. So certain songs that were on the SoundCloud didn't necessarily fit with the flow of A Day of Winter, but it doesn't mean it won't be released as a bonus track or as on a single feature or B-side, something like that.
Right. So definitely some exciting exclusive material to be checked out on SoundCloud. So now that the EP is completed, you guys have been performing these songs. How do you feel that they translate live?
I would say that the core of the song is obviously still there, but they really are different. So if you're used to the record and then you come to a show, you'll definitely get a surprise, something different. We have a lot of melodies that we either add, via one of our instruments, or melodies that you may hear on the record that aren't there, because live is just a different dynamic, and it's not always nice to recreate exactly what you did on the record, because things sound good in production that don't necessarily sound good live, and there's things that sound really cool live, but you might not want to put on the record because it's just more for in the moment and when you're up on stage, and that's exactly what we do. So you'll see new parts. You'll see us maybe quiet down where we went louder on the record, or opposite, stuff like that. The use of 2 guitars is definitely really good live, because Chris does a lot of effects through his guitar that we may have used through electronics on the record, or just times where we're playing together that you don't get much of that on the record, because that's just not how they were recorded. But yeah, it's interesting. You'll get something different, which is why I think that a live show with us is very special for fans.
I think people, when they go see a band live, they want to hear something different.
Yeah.
I mean, if you wanted to hear the song the exact way the song was recorded, you would just listen to the record or the MP3 or whatever. Yeah. Coming to a show is an experience in itself, and no 2 shows are ever the same. The way we play a song live will never be the same as the next time we play that song live at another show. So coming to see a live band There's nothing like it, because you're capturing the energy in the room, and you're taking that energy and you're flowing it into the song. And it'll take the song up and down. It'll take bridges or musical interludes 20 bars longer than they were supposed to go. It just all depends on the energy. So that's what's great about playing live, is it's never going to be the same as the record. That's the best part of it, for sure.
That is definitely the best part of it. So for my final question, what's something about the Underneath that your fans don't know yet?
You know what I would say is that when you hear the music and you go online, you check us out, the vibe that we give off, especially through even the colors that we use on our websites, there's very minimal color, a lot of black and white. The music tends to be more serious. You'd probably get a first impression from the band, but then actually knowing us as people, as friends, brothers, we're actually way more goofy, and we joke around almost all the time.
Yeah, we're ridiculous.
You really wouldn't.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, you really wouldn't get that impression off of the music and the just the way that everything looks through our websites. But we're actually a bunch of clowns almost all the time. Yeah.
Well, that wraps things up. I'd like to thank you guys so much for coming out and taking the time to talk with me today.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm Heather. This is The Underneath. You can catch this and other exclusive interviews with your favorite bands on www.amusicblogya.com. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.